was involved to some extent in science and academia is so concerning, especially because, as you see here, he was trying to have some kind of influence there too with the whole horny virus hypothesis. And mind you, I was reading an article about this because I wanted to know how much people who invest in academia, in science, blah, 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 how much of a say they really have. And it turns out, from what I've seen, granted, this depends on the person, but for the most part,
well, listen to me. I love to see the sunshine in the sky. I hope that you come out to run and fly. We're happy together, we're happy forever. Let's have some fun. Boom.
No.
Well, listen to me. I love to see the sunshine in the sky. I hope that you come out to run and fly. We're happy together, we're happy forever. Let's have some fun. Boom, baby, boom. I like to see you being on the
Mushu, what's your deal?
I know you
What is your deal?
too, 'cause we have fun.
I'm trying to play video game and you're hopping in front of the computer. If you want to snuggle, out. Just snuggle.
Baby boom. Some people say you're cute, but I don't care.
investing in someone's career, a lot of people have a general idea of what that means. You know, like if you're investing in an author, you know that they plan to write a novel on thing X, Y, or Z, but you're not part of the decision making. You are like a patron of the arts or a patron of the sciences. So even the fact that Epstein was so involved with this whole coronavirus thing tells you that he wanted to have control in ways that don't even make sense within the scope of what he was doing. So I think it's important to address that the reach cannot be underestimated, even with quote-unquote smaller things that you might not think of. So Epstein and the sciences, not as disconnected as we thought. Beyond that, when we're talking about Epstein these days, there is a lot of talk about the Clintons. Now, without getting too far into Clinton lore, or else God knows where we're going to end up here, there's this article that says Clinton set to testify in House committee's Epstein investigation after contempt threat. Bill and Hillary Clinton agreed to the House Oversight Committee's terms to testify as part of the panel's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, a last-minute change of heart for the pair who had been defiant as they faced a contempt of Congress vote. The panel's chairman said Tuesday. Hillary Clinton will appear for a deposition on February 26th, while the former president will appear on February 27th, the committee said. House Republicans said they will put the contempt proceedings on hold to ensure their compliance. Once it became clear who would hold them in contempt, the Clintons completely caved and will appear for transcribed, filmed depositions this month, Republican Rep. James Comer of Kentucky said in a statement. In a letter to the committee, the Clintons asked for a public hearing, saying, "We now believe that will best suit our concerns about fairness." A source told CBS News the depositions will take place behind closed doors. The House is expected to vote this week on holding the former president and former Secretary of State in criminal contempt of Congress, but the plans were abruptly put on hold Monday when the Clintons' legal team alerted the committee that they would agree to the committee's terms. Comer appeared to be caught off guard by the news and said he was seeking clarification on what they were agreeing to. The House Rules Committee then postponed consideration of the contempt resolutions. Over the weekend, the Clintons' legal team proposed that Bill Clinton would sit for a 4-hour transcribed interview in New York City that should be restricted to matters related to the investigation into Epstein. Hillary Clinton would offer another sworn declaration, but if the committee required her in-person appearance, it should follow the same terms as her husband's testimony, the lawyers said. Comer rejected the offer, calling it unreasonable. That led to Monday night's email from the Clintons' legal team saying the pair accept the terms of your letter and will appear for depositions on mutually agreeable dates. The acceptance marks a stark turn for the Clintons, who had argued the House Oversight Committee's subpoenas seeking their testimony were invalid and legally unenforceable. So I'll link the article down below if you want to read the rest of it, but the long and short of all of this is that the Clintons initially said no, then they said yes, but it has to be public, then it's not going to be public. Now, the reason why this is important is because I think it shows you not necessarily just how quickly people will flip-flop here and how telling the flip-flop is, but I think instead that this shows just how much people want to avoid any Epstein discussion at all costs. And granted, any normal person would not be excited to have this conversation. At the same time, like I said in my prior video, if you have an opportunity to actually show that you have nothing to hide, why would you not immediately take that opportunity? Now, granted, I'm sure there are plenty of things that can be taken out of context and misunderstood because human relationships are complicated. Realistically, if you are a rational, logical human being and there's a rational and logical explanation for what happened, the only people who will misunderstand are idiots of sorts, right? If it's A plus B equals C, you shouldn't be worried that people will think, no, actually it's B squared. So anyway, that's interesting also because this is quite the flip-flop, because it's not just like we're not going to speak to you at all, but it's like, yes, we will speak to you, but only under the conditions we want, and we want it to be public, which, if I were a conspiracy-brained person, I would say that all of this is a further distraction from what actually is in the files and from what actually the Clintons know. It's a distraction because now we're not talking about the actual content of the files. Now we're talking about the Clintons being dramatic divas about all of this. So it does work as a distraction, which makes me think that they're far more guilty than I originally thought, which, to be honest, I originally already thought they were quite guilty. Now we can move on to Lizzo. Now, I became aware that Lizzo spoke on the Epstein situation. I wasn't aware she was going to do that, and I had no reason to think she was going to do that. And this goes back to an opinion of mine, which may be kind of unpopular, but personally, I don't look to celebrities to speak about things unless they actually care, which for the most part, I don't think they do. And I don't think that they have a concept of what it means to be a normal person anymore, because a lot of celebrities have been so far removed from that life for long enough that they have no concept, right? And I really don't need to listen to a millionaire, billionaire tell me about everyday life and what I should care about, with all due respect. This touches exactly on why people should opt to shut the fuck up more often. Now, there's a video of Lizzo appearing to defend men in Epstein files. So this video was swiftly deleted for obvious reasons, because you act like a moron and realize you were being a moron. Guess what? You have a moment of illumination where you're not a moron and take the video down. So we're gonna look at that video and I'll let you come to your own conclusions.
I have to. It's really frustrating to me because there are 3 million files, right? 3 million documents in the files, because over the course of however long this man has been doing these crimes, every email, every text message, everything, just in general about this man's life, has been put into these files to scan for illegal activities, right? Every text message you sent to somebody. If you stole an apple from Walmart and you were on trial for stealing an apple from Walmart, is every person in your phone an accomplice? Is every person in your phone, is every email you sent to a person or speaking about a person, or does that make that person complicit? Does that make that person a bad guy? No, it doesn't. And that's the same thing with the Diddy stuff. I told y'all, the media is so smart. They're gonna make you so distracted with celebrity names that you're not gonna focus on the problem. You think every party that Diddy ever threw was a freak off and people were fucking and slipping and sliding on the baby oil? No! That man had birthday parties, that man had Easter gatherings, that man had Super Bowl parties, that man had Christmas parties, Halloween parties, regular parties. And so now they're saying Mom Donnie's mom, who's a filmmaker, they're like, oh, she's on the Epstein list because Ghislaine Maxwell, she was on a guest list for Ghislaine Maxwell's like showing of a political film once. Hey, you're distracted. You just want Mom Donnie to be a bad guy, or his mom. A girl can go to a movie premiere. You think Ghislaine Maxwell woke up every single day trafficking children? No. We're losing the plot. And it's just like the American people in the comments. I knew she was wrong. Jay-Z, I knew he was. What did it say Jay-Z did? He was there in 1996. Come on, people. Like, y'all are falling for it. It's the easiest, oldest trick in the book. And honestly, I'm losing faith in the average intelligence of the American person. Because, come on. Just because somebody's name is mentioned in a 3 million document file of a person's life who's been lived over crimes who've spanned decades, doesn't mean that every single person is an accomplice. He could be mentioned. He referenced Jay-Z once. He was like, oh, we could learn from Jay-Z's business model. Why are y'all... Where's the crime? Focus.
So, I'm going to say one thing. I agree to a very small extent, in the sense of just because someone is in the documents, it doesn't mean that they're guilty. It doesn't mean that they did anything illegal. Everyone, I think, on Earth at some point has associated with someone who maybe did shitty things, right? It's obviously different when it comes to, oh, they attended the same party once, which is a big nothing burger, compared to they used to speak via email, via text. This person went to 5 parties, 10 parties. Those are 2 very different situations, right? I will say, however, I find it very, very weird to run to the defense of someone when I don't think, pardon if I'm wrong, I don't think you, Lizzo, have read all of the 3 million plus documents. So before you run to say that Jay-Z is a saint, even though he is known for going after minors, including his current wife, but I guess whatever about that, who cares? It actually is not that surprising to me that Jay-Z is there, because if we're talking about the Epstein files, what we're really talking about is minors and the abuse of minors, predominantly amongst other things. Oh, what do you know? Jay-Z used to go for minors. So if he's in there, actually, contrary to other people like Mamdani's mom, actually with Jay-Z, it's automatically more suspicious. Does that mean he's the devil and committed God knows what crimes? No, but I think it's dumb to run to defend him because what? Because he's a musician? Because he's someone you know / look up to? Why him specifically? Are you defending anyone else in there? Because from my perspective, you're quote-unquote defending two people, which are Mamdani's mom and Jay-Z, right? If, according to your logic, being named in the files doesn't mean you're guilty, do you have that same stance with people that you don't like? Do you? Because I tend to think not. I think that if someone that you didn't like were in there, you'd be like, oh, they're in the Epstein files, they're terrible, whatever. So I think that this is biased, but more than anything, I don't need you, millionaire, musician, I don't need you to tell me how to read these, okay? Because if we're gonna talk about being biased, these are people in your cosmos, like in your Hollywood world. So realistically, do I need a millionaire who may very well be connected to some of these people telling me what to think? No. And by the way, when I say connected, I mean knowing the people. That doesn't mean she's guilty or anything. The art of celebrities shutting up about things that they're not qualified to talk about has been truly lost. Truly lost. Now, let's look at some of the things I've saved from TikTok because there are a lot of photos and documents that we can go over. There's also a crazy amount of misinformation circulating, and part of that, I think, is also part of the big distraction, if you will. Now, there are so many TikToks. This one has 165,000 likes. Mind you, straight up misinformation. It says, Ghislaine Maxwell's sister owns Amber Alert. Think about that, Epstein files. That's not true. Ghislaine Maxwell's sister does not own Amber Alert. Throw that one out the window. It was an interesting theory for the 2 seconds I considered it, but that's not true. So moving on about that. There's also a thing going around about Ghislaine Maxwell's sister being married to Dr. Fauci, I believe it is. Also not true. The one thing I will say about these two false statements is that they connect to how far the reach goes, right? Because when you think of Dr. Fauci, you're thinking, okay, so there's a connection between Epstein and famous doctors, and again, due to the sciences. The important thing to hold on to amidst that misinformation is that as much as this stuff is made up, it's not far off from true in the sense of, like I said before, Epstein had connections with scientists, and scientists that have a big pull on how everything is dealt with in the world. In the Epstein files, and I haven't gone into this part as much, there is reference to pandemics and simulated pandemics, and then Bill Gates was in there. The conspiracy of COVID being fake or something along those lines is not a far-off conspiracy from what's in the files, because Epstein was very intimately connected with a lot of people who have to do with science, which then connects to medicine, which then connects to, I guess you could call it, global policies, especially during pandemics. So you understand how all of this is very far-reaching, but nonetheless, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Please check and do your homework, because I saw so many TikToks about the Amber Alert connection to Ghislaine Maxwell that for a second I actually believed it, because I was like, it can't be that I just saw 5 TikToks that all say the same thing with a lot of likes. Turns out it's all bullshit. Okay, so on the note of cannibalism, we touched on this last time. There is more that has come out about that, and this is very much a recurring theme.
You throw away the head and keep the body. In this disturbing conversation, Epstein seems to be referring to the women that use trafficking as an aquarium. You can see he's having this conversation with a Olivier Colon. Olivier, I don't know how to say his name, but I'm going to read this to you, and warning, it gets really disturbing. You can see Epstein wrote at the bottom, no problem, a friend that built the Beijing airport asked if I knew a bank that was interesting. I thought I'd run it by you. Good for you. I'm not involved in any way what I expect to be. Then this guy, Olivier, whatever, says, thanks, very nice of you, where are you now? Then Epstein writes back, on my island in the Caribbean with an aquarium full of pearls. So, Keep that in mind. An aquarium full of girls. He is making these women out to be fish, or as you're going to see, shrimp in a few moments. That's when it gets disturbing. Then this guy writes, the king of Saudi Arabia has a few white sharks in his Jeddah palace. I totally prefer yours. Sure, I would enjoy the view. And then again, as to our Russian, I guess some might refer to them as white sharks. So then they start obviously here referring to these women as shrimp. He says, I like shrimp, but not so much if it's too pink, although I'm definitely more into white than into any other color. I like your philosophy. Then right here we get the infamous now message. No, some are like shrimp. You throw away the head and keep the body. So what that means, we don't necessarily know. Is this actually, I've seen this guy referring to decapitating a woman, keeping the body? Are they talking about mutilating a corpse after death, preserving the body? What does that even mean? Throw away the head and keep the body? I mean, it's physically impossible to throw away or toss out a living thing's head. Its body still remaining, and it'd be alive. I mean, it's impossible to do so. Yeah, this is some really deeply disturbing shit to me. Then they continue on, as long as you don't have any hammerhead ones that are like white sharks. And then they say, I can't even think of the smell of black shrimp. So this seems to also not only be a conversation about potentially murdering and mutilating women, but there's also casual racism throughout this entire string of messages as well, with them saying, I can't even think of the smell of black shrimp. But keep in mind, the DOJ, the FBI, Trump himself, they claim that no investigation is needed at all whatsoever. This is all done. Everybody's been held accountable. None of these people should ever face any sort of music. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about this? Please share out these videos, like, comment, and spread the word.
So, none of this is particularly surprising, especially if you've been on social media, even if you haven't gone over the files yourself or you haven't been up to date on everything. There are a lot of allegations that there are women, children buried on Epstein's property, one of the properties at least. So all of this conversation stops being surprising if you already knew that. I also think that considering the gravity of these crimes and how heinous Epstein's crimes are and those connected to him, death is not a far off thing. Murder is not a far off thing. If we're going to delve into this, knowing that there are some weird kind of ritualistic, low-key sacrificial, rough sex, perverse shit type of activities, is murder that far off?
So this is one of the most disturbing things I've ever read in my life, and it raises the question, was Jeffrey Epstein impregnating young children in order to force them to have kids that would then be brought into the world of sex trafficking and pedophile rings from a newborn? Or I should say from the age of newborn, or whatever you'd say. So these are screenshots from a journal of one of Epstein's victims, and the girl talks a lot in coded language. As you can see here, this is kind of how she wrote, and she writes in these journals, but it's a pretty easy code to decipher. I deciphered a bunch of these pages. But the really disturbing thing throughout these journals is that she talks about multiple perpetrators. She names perpetrators, like the executives at AOL, Leon Black, a good friend of Epstein's. There are many more too. But this girl constantly talks about death, about murder, about her babies being taken away from her, about her being forced into these traumatic procedures that were extremely gruesome and bloody. There are also pictures of what I can assume are potentially her babies, her sonograms. And yeah, I mean, you can pause and read all of these pages. There are so many of them. I just spent the last hour reading through these journals for a video that I'm producing on my channel. And I was on the verge of tears throughout most of it. I mean, it's really, this is horrific stuff. Some of the pages she has drawn to and splattered with ink like this, or like this with some of her code. Here are some of the pages translated, though. Tomorrow was the halfway ultrasound for Jeffrey. This one stuck. After they took the first baby who survived in the early miscarriage, I think it was called, I no longer feel like a person but a vessel. Will they take this one too? Who has the first one? Where did Ghislaine go? I can't let myself get attached. My body feels so tired. Will I ever be free? So then in another page of coded writing, she writes, I am such a monster. I didn't console her. I can't unhear her screams. They haunt me. I couldn't even bring myself to look at her. I am a monster. I deserve to be haunted by her screams. I am so sorry. I am so broken. Another page here, she describes the doctor who was from Israel, and she describes the procedure. This was different. A shot, and those rod-like things had a hook and so much pain. Blood and water all over the bed, and she was wrecked, like a feeling when your tummy hurts and you have to push. I saw her fingers, this tiny head and body in the doctor's hands. It reached its tiny arm up and had a tiny foot. I closed my eyes and no more. No more cries. I don't understand. Just say these things happen. They yelled and screamed, and he said it will be the same in a couple of months. I don't understand what is going on. I can't go to school like this. I can't stop shaking. Yeah, so to me it sounds like this girl was being impregnated over and over again, starting at the age of probably 13 or 14, and then when she was having these babies, they were being taken from her and immediately brought into the world of a pedophile ring or sex trafficking organization. There are so many things in these journals that are so twisted. Let me know if you want me to talk more about these entries, because yeah, it's really heartbreaking stuff.
So this is also an addition that is to me, no way surprising, though it is particularly haunting to hear from a victim and their journal and what they endured. The fact that she even had to write everything in code is so tragic, because it's like there's not even the possibility of self-expression without having to hide and shield yourself and protect yourself, right? Because I'm sure if that journal had been found by Epstein or anyone connected, she could have been murdered. She very well probably would have been murdered, because it's like, hey, you can't tell the public this, or they would assume that she'd take it to the public, a journalist, so on and so forth, right? So the fact that everything is so, in some ways, quote unquote, redacted, even in terms of these journals for the victim's safety at the time, is wild. In terms of the content, it would not surprise me that they had an operation going on in terms of impregnating young girls and then doing God knows what the babies. There is a big conversation about eating babies, amongst other things, and if you do believe that, then this makes sense with that, in the sense of you have young girls/women, if there are even any women, that are getting impregnated in order to basically be a copy of supply